This is my second video. The first one was on the protective services of the federal government. Those federal agencies where the officers wear uniforms. Many of them are in what we would refer to, or what the government even refers to as police positions, but are primarily protective in nature. And I spoke, I think, at some length about, for instance, the FBI police. It has its own police force, but principally what they do is they secure the FBI headquarters building and the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. There are other agencies that I spoke of, the Capitol Police. Now, they've been in the news quite a bit. Again, primarily in securing the Capitol building and Capitol Hill. They do enforcement work for sure, but it's limited to a very specific geographic area. The Park Police, yes, they have federal law enforcement authority on United States federal parks. So these are federal agencies. They're police agencies in many cases, but they differ, significantly from what you would consider to be state and local police. The duties are very, very different. So a new park police officer is going to have a very different experience than, say, a Washington, D.C. police officer or a Chicago police officer. Okay, a CIA police officer, yes, they have them. You're going to be working the main gate, doing security, letting cars in. Now, can you make arrests? Absolutely. Are you going to be making a lot of arrests? No, not really. You're going to be doing a lot of security. And you'll find that there are many, many federal agencies that have, again, police agencies, uniform police, but they really don't do police work. What I'm going to speak about on this particular video is the United States Secret Service. And I've worked with them as a DEA agent, so I'm familiar with them. And I've had friends who were in the Secret Service, and there's a lot really to be said about it. It's really a crossover agency, has both protective and investigative duties. And when we speak of the Secret Service, there's really three divisions or three levels of employment that a person can have. And the first is the uniform division of the Secret Service, which I alluded to in my first video. In the uniform division of the Secret Service, they are full Secret Service officers. They have full federal law enforcement authority. They wear uniforms, but they work posts primarily. Now, what kind of posts do they work? Well, the White House, the old executive office building, the vice president's residence, perhaps Camp David, wherever the president is at. And their job is principally it's security. Yes, they are Secret Service, but they're going to be working a fixed post. So you'll be working, a person who's hired in that position would be working, maybe start off midnight to 8. Okay, working, this is just an example. I don't know what their work schedules are, but you might be working, starting off at a metal detector of all places, or a guard shack. And you have to do very strict security on folks who are coming into these buildings for obvious reasons. So again, it's uniform security, United States Secret Service Uniform Division of the highest level. Now, is this job for you? It might be, it might be. It isn't police work. It's nothing like being a police officer. And it's nothing like being a special agent. Okay, it's like more security type work. But the highest level of security type work. So you're going to be working a post, or perhaps roving around the grounds of the White House with, a canine, or maybe on the roof of the White House. Who knows? But you're going to be working, a shift with security responsibilities. Now, is this the job for you? It depends. If this is up what you want to do, absolutely. A lot of people, again, will use these positions to go into other positions. Is it something that I would want to do personally? No. Why? Because I just don't like security type work, and I don't like checking under cars and doing all that. It's just boring to me. I don't like guard duty, and I'm not just saying they're just guards. They're not just guards. They're the highest level of security that we have. But again, I think you have to keep that in mind. Okay, I'm not denigrating the position in any way, but I also want people to understand that if you're going to go into that position, what you're going to be doing. And it's principally, again, doing guard protective type duties at a fixed point, at a fixed post, screening people coming on or coming onto the property or coming toward contact. So if there's a party, let's say at the White House, well, people will have to go through several security checkpoints. And guess who mans those checkpoints? Uniformed Secret Service, will man those checkpoints, or woman those checkpoints, okay? So that's what you would be doing. Good point. I don't believe that job requires a college degree. I think you start off as a GS7, so you can have a college degree, and that'll qualify you. But another thing that will qualify you is just work experience that qualifies for a GS7. So 3 years significant work experience. So let's say you were in corrections for 3 years, or you did an NCO, maybe a military police function for several years. I think that may qualify you for the U.S. Secret Service Uniform Division. Now, again, there are several positions in the Secret Service. The next one up, I would consider this the next position up, is the Investigative Protective Officer. Now, these folks work in plain clothes, and they do just what the job description says. They do protective work. So on this duty, you will be assigned a protective detail. Well, who gets a protective detail? Well, for sure the president, the president's wife, the president's children all have protective details. Usually the president's brothers and sisters. The whole presidential family has a detail because he's at risk. The same with the vice president. So the incoming administration, Joe Biden will have a detail. Jill Biden will have a detail. Hunter Biden will have a detail. I think he has another son. Well, if he does, that son will have a detail. And certainly Vice President Harris will have a detail. Her husband, Doug, will have a detail. Their children will have details. This is necessary because these people are high up, the highest up you can get in the United States government, number one and number two. Former presidents have details. So Donald Trump and Melania Trump, after Donald leaves office, President Trump leaves office, he will retain his detail. His children's detail will be pulled. Okay, so they will not have details any longer. Former presidents their children only have details until they are 18 years of age. So Barron Trump would keep a detail, but the other Trumps may or may not. They probably get a lot of threats. They probably will for a while. But the threats go way down once a person leaves office. And then also, of course, Michelle and Barack Obama have details because former president, right? George W. Bush and Laura Bush have details. Bill and Hillary Clinton have protective details. Jimmy Carter and Rosalind Carter have protective details. Now, the good news is if, like for me, I'm 61 years old. I'm retired from the DEA. But if I could still be on Rosalind Carter's protective detail. I think I could handle that, or Jimmy Carter's detail. It would be a good job for me. I don't think it'd be a good job if you're in your mid-20s wanting to do this. But someone has to do it, again. So there's no guarantee as to who you're going to be assigned to, but probably you're going to be assigned to probably the president or vice president, most likely. Now, when this job really picks up is campaign season. Because when the campaigns kick off, the Republican and Democratic campaign and independents, if they qualify, a bipartisan commission makes recommendations to the president and the Secret Service as to which candidates and their families should receive protection. And this came as a result of the 1968 assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, who was Democratic, the front runner for the Democratic nomination, but was assassinated in Los Angeles. So from that time on, presidential candidates received Secret Service. At the time, Bobby Kennedy did not have a Secret Service detail, but now they do have details, and they retain their detail for a few weeks until they drop out of the race or are forced to leave or whatever. The number of threats go way down at that point. What are the good points of the job? Well, it starts off as a GL7, so a college degree will qualify you for this job. It goes up all the way to GS11 or GL11. And in addition to their salary, they get availability pay. Now, a uniformed officer does not get availability pay. If they have to work overtime, they get overtime. So when the White House was under siege during the summer, all those folks made a killing, because they got time and a half, double time, if it went far enough, Sunday pay, holiday pay, if there was a holiday, you got it, okay? Now, with regards to protective officers, you're FLOSS exempt, which means Fair Labor Standards Act exempt. You get your salary, you get your locality pay, and you get 25% of your pay added in because you're on call 24/7. Now, you will probably have a government vehicle with that job. And again, with that job, what is it going to involve? It's going to involve protection, standing in crowds, some investigative work, but not much. Okay, you're going to work under the direction of the special agent who is assigned to run that detail. And there will be special agents in that detail who are in charge of the detail. And then they will control the uniform division to a certain extent and the investigative protective officers. So again, the highest you can go in as an investigative protective officer as a GS-11 has no supervisory potential. Okay, so if you're a military veteran without college, this might be a very good job for you. If you want to do police work, it's not necessarily what you want to get into. Okay, if you want to do investigative work, it's not necessarily, you're not going to be doing a lot of that. Thank God that most of the time you're going to be training or on duty, preparing for something that is probably inevitably going to be attempted, but thank God is very rare. Okay, so the up on the good part of the job, a lot of travel if you like the travel, or it could be a downside. Working with famous people, high profile people, good. Highly regarded agency, getting a good job when you're out, good. Downside, again, protective work is protective work. It's you'll be doing a lot of the legwork of the protective work. Now, in years gone by, this job did not exist. This job was all done by special agents. And was not considered the best of duties. So they created a separate category because they found out, number one, they needed a lot more people, but they don't need necessarily the qualifications of a special agent. What they need is someone who can shoot, someone who can do surveillance in a crowd, someone who can basically do leg work in advance work, but not necessarily be in charge of it. Qualifications, you'll need the highest level of security clearance. You're going to need a high level of physical fitness. You have to do very well with firearms. No tattoos, no visible tattoos. So if you got mom on your forearm, or I don't know, death before dishonor or something on your face, you're not going to get that job. Okay, that's just the way it is. You might like it, you might not like it, but they just don't want you. Okay. I never had any tattoos. I was in the Navy and Marine Corps, the DEA. I don't have any, but now it's very common, So back in the day, trying to get a law enforcement job with a lot of tattoos, not good. Nowadays, it's not too bad, but if you're going to the Secret Service, it's not going to be a very good thing. The highest level position in the Secret Service is a special agent position, the criminal investigator, GS 1811. And they start off as a GS7 or GS9. For this job, you will require a college degree at a minimum and probably several years police experience. And the duties are both protective and investigative. Now, what does a special agent do? Well, you have full federal law enforcement arrest authority. But again, most of their work, or much of their work, is the protective details. Now, the special agent will be in charge of running the protective details. What does that mean? Well, they're in charge of the investigative protective officers. They also do the advance work. When the president goes to a city, there's a lot of advance work that's involved. Actually, whenever the president makes a move, there's a lot of work that's involved, and the agents coordinate with the various law enforcement agencies. So when the president goes through Washington, D.C., the traffic all has to be stopped. Okay, well, who does that? Well, of course, the Metropolitan Police Department does that, but it's done in coordination with the Secret Service. So the Secret Service special agent in charge of the president's detail makes sure that this is done. They also would do their legwork and overseas travel. They would conduct investigations on people who've made threats against the president, of whom there is no small number. And, if somebody is making a threat, whether it's online or YouTube, okay? Some guy's just spouting off at, making threats. Well, then they're going to have to go out and interview those people and find out who they are. Are they just blowing smoke? Are they serious? Are they really a threat? Or, did they just kind of go a little bit overboard? You have to make those judgments, and in some cases, people are going to be arrested and charged. Now, another interesting aspect of the Secret Service special agent position is that they are charged with investigating the counterfeiting of United States currency. I worked one case as a DEA agent against a target of mine who was involved in counterfeiting as well as drug selling. So this guy was doing everything. And they're a lot of fun to work with. Now, in the DEA, our priority is to try to get the source of supply, or work your way up the chain as far as you can. Obviously, the source of supply is probably in Afghanistan or in Mexico, but you work it up as far as you can, and if you can indict people overseas, you do that. In the Secret Service, when you're conducting a counterfeiting investigation, your objective, your goal, is to work your way up to the printer, the person who's printing that money, and arrest them. And you use the same investigative techniques that are used by other agencies: surveillance, undercover buys, use of informers, cooperating witnesses, these type of things. You put together the case, and again, the goal is to take out the printer, to lock up the printer. At the highest, then there is another level of what they do in terms of financial investigations, where they investigate fraud against, against entitlement programs. So this is another aspect of the Secret Service, because indeed it used to be part of the Treasury Department. Prior to being moved over to Homeland Security after 9/11, most of these agencies were part of the United States Department of Treasury, hence the investigations into counterfeiting currency, hence the investigations into financial crimes. You still have those agencies doing it, they're just not in the Treasury Department. They're in the Secret Service. Instead of breaking up the Secret Service, they added to the Secret Service. So they added a new level of position, that being that of investigative protection officer. What are some of the benefits of being a Secret Service agent? Top level of federal law enforcement. The president gets the best, okay? Definitely 20 years of work and you can retire. Now, with every other federal agency, it's 20 years at age 50 or 25 years, regardless of age. But they get 20 years, they're done. You work with high-profile people. What are some of the downside? Well, number one is a lot of travel. A lot of travel. Presidents travel a lot, candidates travel a lot, vice presidents travel a lot. And if you're on one of their details, that means you travel a lot. Okay, so that may be something you like, maybe something you don't like. Protective work is protective work is protective work. Okay, you're not going to be making a lot of arrests. Okay, if you want to make a lot of arrests, go to the Border Patrol, go to the United States Marshals, go to the DEA. Those make your most arrests. Go to ICE. Okay, the Secret Service does make arrests, but thankfully, the number of people who need to be arrested for threatening the president or attempting something, the number is relatively small. So, you could go for a long time without making an arrest. A long time. And the number of counterfeiting is a real stupid crime, to be quite honest with you. Anybody who's got counterfeit gets caught pretty quickly. Just about God rest his soul, George Floyd, okay? It doesn't take much to spot phony counterfeit. Okay, it's a stupid crime. But again, you have to have people who investigate it, and the birth of the Secret Service was actually, there was so much counterfeiting of United States currency in the mid-19th century that you needed an agency that could do that, and they were also tasked with guarding the president. Now, with regards to Lincoln and Garfield and McKinley and Kennedy, they didn't do quite that well, but they've gotten much better over time. They're much, much better. And the last president to have a serious assassination attempt was President Reagan when he was shot, I think in 1981, by John Hinckley. So they're very good at what they do, and they've gotten much better even since the early 80s. They're much, much better, much more professional now, and I think the president and presidential candidates and vice presidents and vice presidential candidates are much safer. So those are some of the ups and downs. Again, some of the downs, some of the ups. You might be working for a great person to work for, just a great protectee. Or you might be working for a real booger. I mean, it just depends. There's some people who's I wouldn't want to be on their protective detail, but you don't have that choice. If they assign you to his or her detail, and they're a nasty person, you're going to be in the target of some nastiness. They're nice on TV, but they may not be nice off camera. And you got to keep your mouth shut. Okay, that's the other thing. You don't talk about these people to anybody. You kind of take a blood oath almost, like the old essay. No, I'm kidding. But you take an oath where you don't disclose anything about them, because there's a lot that goes on with them that you're going to be privy to, and it's really nobody's business. They are public figures, but their families have lives. Okay, their children have lives. Okay, their children didn't necessarily sign up for this. Okay, so but you still got to protect them, and that's the way it is. So hopefully this has given you a good overview of the United States Secret Service, and we'll continue. The next one will be the Federal Air Marshals. God bless.